Alright guys, today we're going to talk about inscription and how you can make lots of gold with this profession. So we're going to cover inscription in a few different sections. First we're going to talk about glyphs, then we're going to talk about current expansion stuff, then we're going to get into old content, established markets, and everything else that we haven't already talked about will be in the fourth and final group. Alright you guys, so when you think about inscription, most people the first thing they think about is going to be glyphs. Now some of you guys are going to love glyphs, some of you guys are going to hate glyphs. So what usually happens with glyphs is when they're selling for nice prices, like a couple hundred gold each, you're typically going to find people camping the auction house. They're going to be sitting there and canceling and reposting, canceling and reposting, canceling and reposting all day long. So in order for you to get any of those juicy profits, you got to waste your time and sit by the auction house and camp and undercut and do the same sort of process. So it's very time consuming. Some people don't mind it and like that process, and that's great if you do. But for a lot of us, we have a lot of different markets that we need to participate in, and the amount of time that it takes to do that sort of camping, it's just not worth the effort. So do glyphs if you like doing glyphs. If you don't want to do glyphs, you don't have to do glyphs, and you can totally make lots of gold with inscription just ignoring glyphs altogether. So don't feel like you need to do glyphs. That's not the case. Now, what I like to do with glyphs, I don't sit and camp and post on the auction house because that's just too much trouble and I don't have time for it. So what I do is I just post glyph walls on the auction house. So what that does is it keeps the prices of glyphs really nice and cheap. I have them posted on the auction house at progressively increasing prices. So if any of my competitors, if they want to reset the market and clear out all of the cheap glyphs that I've posted, they're going to have to take on a pretty huge expense buying out all of those walls. So most times people just don't even bother trying clearing out the walls. So it's just something that I do. I'm not encouraging any of you guys to do glyph walls, but if you don't want to deal with the glyph market and you're sick of the people who are camping and undercutting all day long, it's something you can do, and it's kind of fun, and it will annoy a lot of your competitors. So do with glyphs whatever it is you want to do. Now, just to have a look at what a glyph wall looks like, this is how I have my glyph wall set up. You can do it lots of different ways. So one of every single glyph in the game at 30 gold, 40 gold, 50 gold, 75, 100 gold. So clearing out those glyphs are going to cost a lot of gold if anyone tries to reset it. So it's just something I do for fun. Do whatever you want to do. Alright guys, so let's talk about current expansion inscription and how you can make gold with this part of your profession. So let's open it up here and have a look and see what's in here. So we have weapons that we can craft, we have offhands, we have trinkets, and then we've got upgrade tokens that we can put on top of all of those items. So let's talk about that stuff in a little bit more detail. Alright guys, so let's talk about weapons, inscription weapons here, current expansion. So when you open up your profession window, the only thing that you can see from your profession window for these weapons, offhands, and trinkets is the base item, which is stage 1. You can't see stage 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you have no way of knowing if those guys are profitable. A lot of times the base, the stage 1 items are showing as not being profitable, and then people just completely ignore all the rest of it. And usually all the rest of it's pretty juicy and has nice profits, but people are scared away because you're seeing negative red numbers when you open your profession windows for these stage 1 items. So definitely don't overlook the stage 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The key sellers are usually the 4s and 6s. The only way to know if they're profitable for you on your server is to go to the auction house, look and see how much the stage 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are selling for. Check and see how much it's costing you to craft this stuff and see if it's profitable. If it is profitable, you make it and sell it. If it's not, you don't. And even if in a moment in time that you're checking, if it's not profitable, that doesn't mean it's always not going to be profitable. Some days things aren't profitable and then other days they are. So don't completely give up on these stage items because they're very good. They make me a lot of gold on all of the servers that I play on. So please don't overlook this stage gear. You got to have a look and check this stuff out. I'll have in the description an Excel sheet where you can put in the numbers that you pay for various materials current expansion, and it'll tell you exactly what it's costing you to produce all of these staged items. So it'll save you a lot of trouble when you go to the auction house and you look at the price. You can just compare it to your Excel sheet after you put your numbers in, see if it's profitable. So that same process applies to your weapons, your offhands, and your trinkets. You got all different stages of stuff. This is all very, very good stuff, sells very, very well. Don't overlook it. Make sure when you're posting it that you're posting it correctly. If you're using an add-on like TSM, which you really should be using, make sure that you have it set up properly to sell the stage gear, because if you don't have it set up properly, you could be making stage 6 gear, which could be costing you around 20,000 gold to make a piece of stage 6 gear. And if you don't have your TSM set up properly, you could go to the auction house and post it as a stage 1 item, which is only about 1,000 gold. So you wouldn't want to craft something that's costing you 20,000 gold and sell it for 1,000 gold because you haven't set your TSM up properly. I do have it set up in my TSM profile, which is available on Pastebin. If you want to save the trouble of setting it all up, just go grab it from there. And before posting anything, always check to make sure it's right, because sometimes when you import stuff, things might go funny and you might have to import it again. So always check to make sure the first time you're posting anything new that you put into your TSM. All right, guys, so we need to talk about the upgrade tokens, of course. So first we're going to talk about the upgrade tokens for the weapons. So we got 3 different kinds. We've got this one here is cheaper, and then the mighty one is a bit more expensive, and the savage, of course, is the most expensive one to craft. So you can sell these upgrade tokens, you see them over here. You can sell them on the auction house raw, or you can take them and put them on top of the weapons and sell them in stage 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, whatever your preference is. So these guys are pretty good, and the same thing for these upgrade tokens. Now these ones here will upgrade your offhands and your trinkets. So these are the 3 here. You can sell them raw on the auction house, or you can also take them, put them on top of your offhands and trinkets and bring them up to higher stages. So generally how this process works is you go to the auction house. You usually are going to be buying your stage 1 gear from the auction house, because a lot of times you're going to be able to get them below your own personal crafting costs. So it makes more sense to get things the cheapest possible way. So usually you're not crafting your stage 1 gear, just go buy it from the auction house. Then you use your war paints to make your upgrade tokens for the weapons and the offhand. So these guys here that we were just talking about, and the other ones for the weapons. You make those upgrade tokens, you put them on top of the stage 1 gear that you bought from the auction house, as long as it's below your crafting costs. And then you're making stage 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 gear that you can go and sell on the auction house. This is where you're going to make lots and lots of profit with this profession. It's really, really great. Some of you might not find it's as great on your server. Some of you might not even find that it's profitable. But for a lot of us, this stuff is making us a lot of gold. So make sure that you're checking these markets and you're not missing out on huge opportunities. Okay guys, it's time to talk about the leveling trinkets. These guys are very, very cheap to make, only cost about 40-50 gold each to make, and when you sell them, you can usually sell them for about 200 to 500 gold. So that's a pretty nice profit per unit. You're going to find that you're going to be selling the level 91 trinkets a lot more frequently than the 95s and 98s, but if they're all profitable, definitely make them, but you're definitely going to see that the 91s are moving a lot more quickly. So nice profit, don't overlook this market. Alright guys, so let's talk about volatile crystals. Now what do? Well, they change the secondary stats of any of the gear that you're crafting current expansion. So if you get any stats you don't want, like say versatility, and you just want to change it to something else, you just pop a volatile crystal on that item and you have a chance of getting rid of that secondary stat you don't want. Sometimes you'll get the desired stat after putting just one on. Sometimes you might have to put 3, 4, or 5 of them on to get rid of a certain stat that you don't want. So you can sell these raw in the auction house. They only cost like 20-30 gold to make. You can sell them for about 80 gold or so. So a nice profit per unit. You're going to sell a huge volume of these. So even though the profit seems a little bit small and maybe not so exciting, when you're selling hundreds of them, those little bits of profit, 50 gold here, 50 gold there, will add up over time to be a lot of gold. So just because these guys are cheaper, don't just overlook them. That's a bad way to go about things. These guys sell really well in the auction house. Plus, if you're crafting these items over here we were talking about before, you're going to need to pop some volatile crystals on to get rid of stats like versatility that a lot of people don't want. Alright guys, so next I want to talk about Warbinder's ink and all of the other inks that you need to make things with Inscription. So there's 2 different ways that you can do this. One way is buying old content herbs, milling them, turning them into inks, and that process will give you inks the cheapest, but it's just very time consuming because there's no such thing as mass milling for old content herbs. But if you want to save yourself some time, you can mass mill current expansion herbs, which is much more convenient. Then you can mass produce the Warbinder's ink, lots of it, very, very short period of time. Then you can come to this trader and you can trade your Warbinder's ink down 1 per 1 into all of the various different types of inks that you would need. Over here, there's some inks on the next page, but these ones here you're generally not turning in. You can get these cheaper on the auction house than it's costing you to trade with the vendor. But over here, this is the page that you can easily get all of the different inks that you need for inscription very, very quickly. So you have to decide for yourself if you want to invest a huge amount of time to get your inks just a little bit cheaper, or if you don't care about the little bit of a slight extra cost for your inks, if it's going to save you a huge amount of time. So different people are going to do it differently. Whatever works best for you and whatever you're happy with, do what you need to do. Keep in mind that for these War Binders inks, you don't even need to be a scribe to come to this vendor and trade down your War Binders ink into all the various different types of ink. Anybody can do that. All right, so now what are you going to be doing with all of these different types of inks? Some of them you're going to be using them to make glyphs if you're doing glyphs. Also, you're going to need some of them to make various random things throughout your profession. And there's also another thing you can do with these inks that a lot of people often overlook, and I'm not really sure why. You can go to the auction house and just sell all of these different types of inks on the auction house raw, especially in stacks of 3, and they sell like crazy. I make a lot of gold doing it, and I don't have very much competition, so definitely give that a try if you haven't been doing it already. Also, make sure that you have a really healthy inventory of these inks ready for Legion. Okay guys, the next thing on the list is the scribe research notes. Now, these are profitable and I do sell them. I just don't sell huge volumes of them. So if you want to give it a try and you like it, great. If you don't, that's totally fine. It's nothing to be super excited about. It's just an okay market. Alright, so the next thing on the list for current expansion is Card of Omens. Now these guys are profitable. I do sell a larger volume of these guys. The profits are smaller, but because we're selling larger volumes of them, it ends up being a decent market. So certainly don't overlook it if it's profitable on your server. Certainly you're going to find that the Mysterious Fortune cards, you're going to be selling way, way more of those guys, but there's no reason you can't do both. Alright, so let's talk about the current expansion cards. So there's lots of different types of cards that you can make. You can sell the cards raw on the auction house, or you can keep your cards until you're able to make a trinket. And then you can use the trinket and sell the trinket on the auction house. And you can also upgrade the trinket to stage 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So all of that stuff is very, very profitable. It's just a little bit of a messy market having all of these different types of cards in your bags. It can get overwhelming, but it certainly is worth it. Okay, so we're finally done current expansion stuff. Now we're going to get into established markets of old content stuff. So the first thing I want to cover is the certificate of ownership. This allows hunters to rename their pets. It's a really good market. You certainly don't sell massive volumes of them, but the profits are pretty nice on each unit. So it's a good market. Don't overlook it if it is profitable on your server. Give it a try. Alright, so the next thing I want to talk about is the Corrupted Malevolent Gladiator Trinket. It is from last expansion MOP, but it does sell very well. Granted, I do play on PvP servers, but certainly give it a try. Now, it's showing on my tooltip that it's given me a 2,000 gold profit. That's not real. Someone's just jacked the price up on my server. But usually you can easily get away with 300 to 500 gold profit with these guys. Just keep in mind that the posting fee for this particular item is quite expensive. So generally speaking, you only want to post one of these on the auction house at a time, and then when it sells, you can post another one. If you want to do more, totally up to you. Just be aware posting fee is quite expensive. Okay, so the next thing on our list is the Dark Moon cards. Now, to be able to see this, I'm going to have to close down this particular group and give us some room. And then we're going to have to expand our Dark Moon cards. So for Dark Moon cards, old content, we've got level 60, 70, 80, 85, and 90. So there's lots of different types here we can make. Let me expand this group here so you can see all of the different types of cards within each of these different levels. So there's lots. A lot of these guys do sell decently. Some of them don't sell that well. Just to kind of be open and clear about this, it is a very, very messy market to be making these different types of cards because they take up a large amount of space in your bags, and it takes a while before you have the whole set to be able to make a trinket. So if you can tolerate the mess in your bags from all these various types of cards, it is certainly worth your while in terms of profit, but it's just messy and annoying. So if you're aware of that, fine. If you don't think you can handle it, just totally forget the Dark Moon cards because it's just messy, messy, messy. All right, so the other thing I want to mention with these Dark Moon cards is getting it set up properly in TSM is a little bit tricky, and it's not very straightforward because of the process that you have to go through to get these cards. So if you're using my profile, it's all set up for you. If you're doing it yourself, you're going to have a little bit of a headache getting all this set up properly. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about Mysterious Fortune cards. Now you can see on the tooltip that each unit is only giving me 2 gold 43 profit per unit. But because I'm selling thousands and thousands of these guys, that multiplies very easily and ends up being a very large amount of profit. Now I can never make enough of these guys. As many as I make, they just sell and sell and sell. So if you're not making these, definitely get into making them as long as they're profitable on your server and make lots and lots of them. Okay, so the next thing on the list is basically a fort buff. Now, I did sell a lot of these and made a lot of profit on them earlier in this expansion when raid content was new and fresh and people were doing it. At this point in the expansion, I'm pretty much not really selling many of these at all. So I don't really think at this point it's worth your while. All right, guys, let's look at old content shoulder enchants. Now, these do sell very well. Definitely do not overlook this market, but focus on the strength, agility, and intellect shoulder enchants. The stamina ones don't move very well and have much smaller profit, which I'll show you here on the tooltip. So this is intellect, 200 gold. This one here is stamina. Of course, it's low because people don't really want this one, 42 gold. And then the agility is 300 gold profit, and then the strength one is 250 gold profit. So they do have nice profit per unit, and they definitely do sell. So make sure that you're selling these ones on your auction house. Now we've got some toys here that you can make with Inscription. They don't really sell that well. They're not very exciting. So if there's a market that you want to overlook in Inscription, this is one you probably would want to overlook. But if you want to just cover a little bit of everything, then maybe you might want to dabble in this a bit. So you can see 60 gold profit, 25 gold profit, 32 gold profit, and 67 gold profit. So it's got a smaller profit. You're not selling many of them. So do you really want to tie up space in your bags to have these to sell them? You'll have to decide that for yourself. All right, so the next thing in our list is the Twilight vendor items. And as I just said, you just buy these items straight up from the vendor. But the vendor is only available if you have done the starting quest in Twilight Highlands. Now you can do it on any toon. It doesn't have to be your Inscription toon, but you've got to get the starter quest done to get the vendors open in this area. So you need to be able to access these items to be able to craft some really good stuff with this profession. So it's really important that you have the starting quest done on any toon, doesn't matter, just so you can buy these items so you can craft things with Inscription. Let me show you exactly where this vendor is. So this is out in Twilight Highlands right here. So you just come down here once you've done the starting quest. This you'll see NPCs spawn down here. So then there's a little chickie over here, and you come in and talk to her. And she's got the items here. So some of them are cheap, some of them are kind of expensive. So this is one of them here that you need. So I usually buy, 20 of them at a time just to have on hand. So I'm not always running out here every time I need to craft something. Same thing with this one's a little bit more expensive, but still buy 20 at a time just to have on hand. And this is the other one right here. So make sure that you have access to this vendor so you can craft these items that I'm going to talk about shortly. All right, guys, so let's talk about what we can do with those Twilight vendor items that we just showed you. So down here at the bottom are the 3 items that you can make with those Twilight vendor items. So the first item, 8,000 gold profit, and most of that profit is just from the fact that people don't really know where to get these vendor items, or they come out here and they can't find the NPC because they haven't opened up the vendor. So 8,000 gold profit for that item, 6,700 gold profit for this other item, and this one here is 2,450 gold profit. And these items do sell. I sell them all the time. Very, very good sellers. The only difficult part is doing the starting quest to get access to the vendor to buy those vendor materials, because people aren't going to be supplying that to you on the auction house. Why would your competitors allow you in this market? It's juicy, right? Now there's some other blue weapons up here. They don't use the vendor items, but they're very profitable, thousands of gold profit. They sell extremely well. So if there's anything you wanted to really focus on in terms of old content Inscription, this would be one of them for sure, along with Mysterious Fortune cards. So please don't overlook this market. It has very, very juicy profits. Now, there are some other ones here that are behind a daily cooldown. You can only make these epics, one of them every 5 days. Sometimes they have good profits, sometimes they're not that great. So this first one here is only 570 gold profit, which is not that exciting considering it takes 5 days to make. But this other one here has 1600 gold profit, which is much better, but still 5 days it's going to take before you can make one of those guys. Definitely have a look at these weapons. Don't overlook them. You're going to be really, really happy with how well they sell and the amount of profit that you're making with these guys. Alright, so I have everything else that's left over for Inscription in this final group, and everything that's in there you can see right on that page. There's nothing I need to scroll down for you to see. There's not much left over, and anything that's in this group, I make it when it's profitable. None of them particularly stand out in terms of great sellers, movers on the auction house, so that's why they're just in this one massive leftover group. So whenever they end up being profitable, I'll make one. If they're not profitable, I just ignore it. Alright guys, so hopefully you have picked up some information that's going to help you improve your gold making from this profession. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Please subscribe and comment.